in both of these events, according to my numbers, like every team in the event has at least a 1% chance of
I
winning,
love
which,
that.
yeah, doesn't sound like a ton, but, like Schuster had like a 4 or 5% chance of winning gold in the Olympics. So, like, these small probability outcomes do happen. And like I said before, like every game is going to be contested. The best team against the worst team is like an 80-20 game on both sides. So,
Yeah.
obviously, Tanner Horgan's going to win some games. Jacqueline Harrison's going to win some games. And, one of those lower level teams could get hot and, end up in the playoffs. And then it's, anybody's game.
Curling now enters the Sports Weekend spotlight.
Ken, what sort of trends jump out to you? Because I know you track other sports. Is there a thread that you can weave through all of these analytics that sort of tell you trends and let you make better predictions? Is momentum a real thing?
It's a thing, but you got to be a little bit careful with it. Like I think the best example of that is Carrie Anderson this year is 0-9 against teams that are top 10 in my ratings, and she's probably better than that. I mean, you look over the long term, the entire Olympic cycle, and she wins about 55-56% of the time against top 10 teams. So you might imagine that she's going to return to that level going forward. So you got to be a little bit careful with momentum. I mean, there's no question that Team Fleury has played the best this year, and they should be considered the favorite, but I still think there's going to be some fight in teams like Homan and Anderson who maybe have been a little bit disappointing.
So who are your picks?
Well, the computer says Tracy Fleury has the best chance to win on the women's side, but we should point out that chance is only 30%. So you get an idea of why there are upsets in these events is based on that. And on the men's side, Brad Gushu, obviously his team has been outstanding. And he's the favorite, but he only has a 37% chance. And, it really comes back to, again, that record against top 10 teams over the long haul. Like both of those teams have been excellent, but even, the last 3 years, they've won 57-58% of their games against top 10 teams. And obviously there are, half the field's top 10 teams on both sides. So every game is contestable.
What happens when you get like an outlier? Maybe like Casey Scheidegger doesn't play in is not Grand Slams, and now we have Tanner Horgan, in through the last chance.
That's the huge challenge with doing these ratings. You have the Scheidegger case where she didn't play really last year, and she didn't play like half of the season before that even. So you don't have a lot of data on her. Krista McCarville's another great case of that, where she's obviously not playing a lot of events and you have limited data. But you can kind of infer how good they are based on the events they do play, and even if they play limited events, if they're playing a high level spiel, like they're probably not a bad team, and if they perform well in those spiels, then it's pretty easy to rate them based on those numbers. So I think those two teams, by the way, are both dark horses because we do have limited data on them. They might have been a little bit rusty the past few months, and if their game comes together like it did, pre-pandemic, they certainly could be a factor.
All right. You've been throwing out some awesome numbers here. I'm sure you have more. I don't know if you can give us some more, just random ones for fans to hear. And then two-prong. You started and you're known for the college basketball, Ken. How did you get into curling? Because we love that you're a part of the Great Granite game now. So those two-pronged question there. A few more stats because I'm loving hearing those and how you got into this world.
Right. I think the most interesting stat heading into this is that, Tracy Fleury has been so dominant, 30-5 this year. But in those 35 games, she's had hammer. She started with hammer 28 times, which is pretty phenomenal. And I don't think that will continue in this event. I think it'll be a little bit harder for her to earn hammer, every game. So that might pull her a little bit back to the pack a little bit more. As far as how I got into it, I mean, I picked up the sport a few years ago, and I live here in Utah, so there isn't a vibrant curling community necessarily. So started watching a lot of content on YouTube, like your show, and on a lot of games, and just wanted to get into the analytics part of it because that's kind of what I do. So once the pandemic hit last year, I had quite a bit of free time to kind of work on this project and give it the time it deserved, and it's been a whole lot of fun.
Awesome.
There's teams too that get on these incredible roles, like when Epping earned his spot, for example. He just made so many he was on fire, magical shots all the time. And everybody who wins gets these kind of shots that no one else can see. It's sort of a certain mystery that they get, magic almost. But there's no science for that, is there? When somebody just gets so hot, they can make anything.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we watch, right? Because we can't anticipate that. I think the one interesting thing that I would say is that, right now the European Championships are going on, and like half the field, it's a 10-team field, like half the field has less than like a 0.5% chance of winning the event. in both of these events, according to my numbers, like every team in the event has at least a 1% chance of
I
winning.
love
Which,
that.
yeah, it doesn't sound like a ton, but like Schuster had like a 4 or 5% chance of winning gold in the Olympics. So like these small probability outcomes do happen. And like I said before, like every game is going to be contested. The best team against the worst team is like an 80-20 game on both sides. So obviously Tanner Oregon's going to win some games, Jacqueline Harrison's going to win some games, and one of those lower level teams could get hot and end up in the playoffs, and then it's anybody's game.